Welcome back. We're discussing the lessons that we can learn from the journey of Nelson Mandela as the world gears up to celebrate his 90th birthday this summer. Joining me are veteran anti-apartheid activist Ahmed Kathrada, who's been beside Mandela's side for decades, including many long years in prison. He's in Johannesburg. And in London, legendary musician Eddie Grant, who'll be performing at the Nelson Mandela birthday celebration concert on Friday in London. Eddie Grant, you actually at the time, you wrote "Gimme Hope, Jana." That was an outright statement against the anti-apartheid. It was against the apartheid system that was taking place in South Africa. Tell me about that time and really what was building among musicians as a form of activism against what was going on in South Africa.
Well, I can't speak for other musicians, as I would never presume upon knowledge of what they think. But certainly I know that in my own mind, I had come to a position on apartheid. And there were many excuses. You know, people have kind of forgotten what apartheid really signified, what it meant to so many people. And I've gone along now thinking, oh, well, it wasn't maybe so bad. And as things, with the fluctuation of time, things tend to become less and less. But I have firmly inscribed in my mind at the time what apartheid had meant to black people, colored people, people of other races in South Africa. And I also remember the news media and how it was treated. You see, there wasn't a unilateral love of anti-apartheid. I mean, I remember making this particular record that you're listening to, and it wasn't played, for example, significantly at all in the United States. It was played on the campuses, etc., but it was played like a banned record. So now today, that apartheid has ostensibly disappeared, and Madiba is a world figure, and it's a fashion. It's almost like with the passing of Malcolm X, that suddenly there's a certain aura that comes around the person, etc., etc. Well, when I wrote this song, it was written in a time, and I tried, as God would give me the ability to encapsulate what was going on in that time in this song forever.
Well, Ahmed Kathrada, it's ironic that the ban on the ANC, the African National Congress, which was lifted in South Africa in 1990, it's still listed, the ANC is still listed as a terrorist organization in the United States. And for anyone who is a member of the ANC, including Nelson Mandela himself, there has to be a special waiver granted by the US government for them to travel into the United States. There's some irony that this has still remained.
At last we have heard that there are moves to remove those restrictions. Public pronouncements have been made, and I believe a legislation is imminent to do away with those restrictions, to do away with that list according to which those of us who are in the struggle were classified and prohibited. So we welcome that move.
Take me back to that time. Late. Well, take me back to that time. I mean, back in 1964, during the Rivonia trial, yourself and people like Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, when you're sentenced to life, that's basically the apartheid regime saying we're taking away the rest of your life. Now you're going off to prison. What was the atmosphere then? How were you, as activists, able to keep the strength going? What kind of resolve was there that there might be some kind of change?
Well, first of all, from the time of our arrest and from the beginning of our trial, it was drummed into our heads that we are going to die. Until the very last day, before the judge pronounced sentence, the expectation among the accused, the expectation among our lawyers was death. So it is with that we stood up for our sentence, and it is with that in mind that Mr. Mandela, the night before, scribbled a few sentences of what he is going to say when the death sentence is pronounced. So the whole trial was conducted as a political trial, not as a legal trial, where we don't apologize for what we had done. In fact, we are proud of our policy. We proclaimed our pride in our policy, and we are confident that that policy will triumph. That was the spirit in which Mr. Mandela led the accused all of us. And that's how the trial ended. So when the judge pronounced life sentence, of course, there was a collective sigh of relief that we are not going to die.
Another thing that that surprises a lot of people, Mr. Kathrada, is the fact that when in 1985, when then President P.W. Botha offered Nelson Mandela a conditional release from jail as long as he renounced armed struggle, Nelson Mandela refused to do so, and essentially still stood by the idea of the value of armed struggle, which seems in a strange way a contrast to his constant push for peace and obviously his recognition as a Nobel Peace Laureate. Where does that balance come from? Advocating that there is need for armed struggle and yet also being a non-violent activist as well.
Well, I was together with him. The 5 of us were together when we got the news of President P.W. Botha's offer. It was through Mr. Mandela. The offer was made to all political prisoners in South Africa. As far as the armed struggle was concerned, there was never an expectation that we are going to win on the battlefield. The expectation and our policy was to force the enemy to the negotiating table. That was the political policy of the African National Congress. The armed struggle was a facet of the struggle. But all the time, our aim was to force the enemy to the negotiating table. We refused, all of us refused. In fact, in the whole of South Africa, I think about a dozen people at the very most accepted the president's offer. The rest refused to accept his offer. Mr. Mandela, in the letter that he wrote to P.W. Botha, made it clear that violence was started by the enemy. They were perpetuating the violence, and our armed struggle was a response to their violence.
Okay. I want to get Eddie Grant back into the question here and talk about the concert that's taking place. Of course, when I asked you, Eddie, about that time you wrote Gimme Hope, Joanna, you said, you can't speak for other musicians and explained your situation. Of course, many musicians have become activists, and you've always been a sort of socio-activist as well. And I wonder how much more nowadays musicians are getting involved. When you look around you, how much musicians are getting involved with issues of activism and how much more seriously they're taken. I mean, tomorrow, for example, on a Friday, you'll be doing the concert, which of course is trying to promote AIDS awareness.
Yes. As I said before, I find it difficult to speak for others because we're living in a funny world. I can only speak for myself. I'm interested in the condition of people all over the world, people of all kinds, and I'm not afraid to speak my mind, whether that being on AIDS or on politics or on whatever it is, because ostensibly, at the end of the day, it's all about us. Politicians are there to mind our business. They're not there as rulers and leaders of our people, wherever those people are. So when I look at the issues that surround me as a writer, they're real. They're not a spurious nonsense. They're not something that I take lightly. I don't write a song of the nature of Gimme Hope, Joanna looking for a hit record, for example, which maybe some of my contemporaries and so on may do. Well, so hence I find, yeah, sorry.
Eddie Grant, I apologize because we were completely out of time. So much more to discuss, always run out. But Eddie Grant and Ahmed Kathrada, thank you so much for being with us. Really was a pleasure to have you with us. We'll see you next time. We're looking at America's largest Muslim advocacy group accused of being terrorists. We'll discuss that next time.